It's that time of year when self-proclaimed Formula One experts come onto YouTube to make their bold predictions video ahead of the new season. And they come out with things like Max Verstappen won't win the championship this year. So I've decided to throw my hat into the ring and give you guys 3 of my bold predictions for the F1 2025 season. Number 1, Max Verstappen will not be I'm joking, okay? It's a joke. So my first real prediction is that I think Carlos Sainz will end Alex Albon's career. Now, I am a massive Alex Albon fan, so I hope that this doesn't happen, but I do fear that Carlos Sainz will beat Alex Albon so comprehensively that James Vowles will have to go shopping on the F1 driver market. There's a few reasons for this. Obviously, I think Carlos did a fantastic job up against Charles at Ferrari. Ferrari has always been Charles's team, and Carlos came in and did a really, really good job. And let's face it, Charles is considered to be one of the best drivers on the grid for a reason. Plus, let's be honest, Alex's teammates haven't been the most representative, let's say. First up, you had Nicholas Latifi, who was about as much use as a Nutella-flavoured chocolate teapot. And then you had everyone's favourite freedom fighter, Logie Bear Sargent, who was more interested in hugging the barriers than trying to score the team any points. I did think that Franco Colapinto did a fine job up against Alex and even beat him on a few weekends, and Franco did that without any pre-season testing. Carlos is also one of the hardest working drivers in Formula One. Even after Ferrari had dropped him in lieu of Lewis Hamilton, he was still fighting with everything he had up into the last race of the season with Ferrari, trying to claim the Constructors' Championship away from McLaren. Unfortunately, Carlos wasn't able to secure the Constructors' Championship with Ferrari, but he does say that he wants to bring Williams back to its glory days of the late 80s and the early 90s, where they were winning basically everything. So I think that Alex will have the hardest year he's had in Formula One since his 2020 season up against Max Verstappen at Red Bull Racing. But if this does happen, who's James Vowles going to call on to replace Alex? I think it's going to be Valtteri Bottas. Obviously, he's taken the year on the sidelines this year as the Mercedes reserve driver, but he was an ex-Williams driver, so he does have ties to the team. As well, the new team principal at Williams, I suppose he's not really new anymore, is he, James Vowles? But James obviously was at Mercedes during their glory days as head of strategy, I think he was. So there's a lot of connections there that Valtteri has. But then is Valtteri really going to do a better job than Alex? Who knows? But that's bold prediction number 1. Alex Albon's career will be over because of Carlos Sainz. Bold prediction number 2. Liam Lawson will be closer to Max Verstappen than any of Max's recent teammates. When I say recent teammates, I'm not going to include Daniel Ricciardo because he hasn't raced at the team since, 2018? Since 2019, when Max became the official #1 at Red Bull Racing, none of his teammates have really ever challenged him. First up, you had Pierre Gasly, who barely lasted half a season against Max. Then he was replaced by Alex Albon, who himself only lasted a year and a half before being dropped in lieu of Sergio Perez. Although Sergio did remain in that seat for 4 years, I think there was a lot more keeping him in the seat than Sergio's racecraft. The closest that anyone has been to Max in recent years was in 2020, when Alex Albon finished 109 points behind. So for this prediction, I'm going to say that Liam's going to be 108 points or less behind Max Verstappen in 2025. There are a few reasons for this. First of all, I just think that Liam really is something special, and more importantly, so did Red Bull Racing. They could have replaced Sergio Perez a couple of years ago with Daniel Ricciardo. They chose not to do it. They could have replaced him with Yuki Tsunoda. They decided not to do that. Liam comes in, does a handful of races, and is already in the top team. I think that shows you exactly what Red Bull think of Liam Lawson. This could also be helped by Red Bull's competitiveness seemingly dropping off in the latter half of last year. If Red Bull isn't the quickest car, then the points disparity between teammates is arguably going to be less. Liam is also a very, very aggressive racing driver, and he's not afraid to ruffle some feathers, even with some of the more experienced drivers on the grid. Just look at the way he raced Fernando Alonso and Sergio Perez last year. Red Bull love aggressive racers. That's why they loved Max, that's why they loved Danny Ric before, that's why they loved Sebastian Vettel in his early years. And none of Max's teammates have really had that. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that Sergio Perez or Alex Albon or Pierre Gasly are a really aggressive racer. So that's bold prediction number 2. Liam Lawson will be closer to Max Verstappen than any of his recent teammates. My third prediction is that Isaac Hadjar will be dropped and replaced by Arvid Lindblad. Now, this could either be mid-season or potentially at the end of the year, and I do hate to put a rookie down before he's even stepped in the car, but Hadjar's junior career is somewhat lacking in silverware. And I do know that junior categories aren't always the fairest comparison for these young drivers, but they still do count for something. Hadjar is the only F1 driver that I can think of that hasn't won a single championship in go-karts or in single-seaters. There's a few drivers that haven't won championships in single-seaters. I don't think Max Verstappen won any, but he did win everything in go-karts, and he won a bunch of races in Formula 3. If you take a look at his karting record, for example, there's a couple of P2s in there, but it's mostly P7s and P8s. Then when he was promoted to cars in 2018, he had a P3 in French Formula 4, a P3 in the Formula Region Asia Championship, and a P2 in Formula 2, which is definitely his best achievement. But then you've got a bunch more things like P5s, P6s, and even a P14 in Formula 2 in his rookie year. Now, if you compare that to Arvid Lindblad, you've got multiple championships in go-karts with 2 particularly successful years in 2020 and 2021. Then after making the jump to single-seaters full-time in 2023, he took part in Italian F4, finishing in P3, but did win the rookie championship, as well as taking 6 race wins. He also took part in Formula 4 UAE Championship, finishing in P5, second of the rookies, which may not sound like the most exciting start to a single-seater career, but what I find most impressive was his double win at the 2024 Macau F4 race, qualifying on pole, winning the sprint race and winning the feature race. Then in 2024, he had a full season in Formula 3 and finished in P4 with 4 wins, and this was enough for Red Bull to promote him to Formula 2 for the 2025 season. Before Lindblad could take part in Formula 2 this year, Red Bull decided to ship him off to New Zealand to take part on the Toyota Racing Series. Apparently now it's called the Formula Regional Oceania Championship, but it's the TRS. But Arvid Lindblad absolutely dominated the field here. Racing for M2 competition, he would start the year with a triple podium at Tapao, getting 2 P3s and a win in the 3rd race of the weekend, and it would take him all the way up to the 8th race of the season for Lindblad to be off of the podium, taking a total of 6 wins, 6 poles and 12 podiums in a 15 race calendar. So you could definitely argue that Lindblad's junior career, at least up until this point, has been a bit more impressive than Hajar's. And none of this is to say that I think that Hajar is a bad driver. I definitely don't think that he is, but it does almost seem that Red Bull were sort of stuck for another driver to put up against Yuki Tsunoda this year. So I almost think that Hajar's a bit of a seat warmer for Arvid Lindblad. And if he does have a breakthrough year in Formula 2 this year, particularly if Hajar is struggling, I think we could see him replaced either mid-season or more likely at the end of the year. I mean, part of the reason that they shipped Lindblad off to New Zealand was so that he could get the super license points needed for Formula 1. He wasn't sent there for a holiday, he was sent there to get those super license points. Plus, we all know how trigger happy Red Bull are with their drivers, and if one's not performing, there's no reason for them not to chuck them out and put another one in this place. So those are my 3 bold predictions for the season, but I did put the call out to you guys on social media calling for your bold predictions for this season. And you guys did deliver some great predictions. There were some that were slightly left of field, and then there were some that made me question the sanity of my following. So let's take a quick look at some of your predictions. First up, from Dal W on TikTok, this will be the lowest scoring World Drivers' Championship of the current point system. I could definitely see this coming true. I mean, with how competitive the end of last year looked, you would assume that the points difference between the teams isn't going to be as big as it was in, say, like 2022 when Red Bull basically won everything. I'm going to have to look up what the current champion is with the lowest scoring margin. I just thought, though, in 2021 with Lewis and Max, was it 6 points or so? So if this does come true, that would be one hell of a year. But saying that now, I don't think that we're gonna have a year that close. I'd love it, but I forgot that 2021 was so close. I don't know why I forgot that. So if that does happen, I'm all here for it, but getting P1 and P2 separated by less than 6 points or whatever it was, that's gonna take some work. Another one from TikTok, there will be a weird race similar to Brazil last year and Carlos will get on the podium for Williams. This is something that I would love to see. I've seen a lot of people saying that Carlos could get a podium this year, and I don't think that it's outside of the realm of possibility. I mean, he is a great driver and he has gotten podiums in midfield teams before, but then again, the top sort of 8 drivers for McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes and Red Bull, that sort of decides the top 8, so it would have to be a very, very crazy race like Brazil for Carlos to get on the podium. To be fair though, Carlos did take his first podium at Brazil in a quite crazy race himself, so if this does come true, I would love Carlos to get a podium for Williams. I can't remember the last time that Williams got a podium. There was that stupid P2 that George Russell got at Spa in 2021 for the race that never was. Before that, I'm assuming it was Lance Stroll at Baku in 2017, was it? I'll look it up, but I'm pretty sure that was the last Williams podium. Spiffy81 on TikTok says 3 drivers who haven't won a Grand Prix will win one this year. I also asked them to name the drivers. They said Liam Lawson, Kimi Antonelli and Franco Colapinto, who isn't even on the grid next year yet. I mean, Liam Lawson, I could definitely see that happening. I think he's a great driver and Red Bull are likely to be competitive. Antonelli obviously doesn't have as much experience as Lawson, but is really, really highly rated. And Mercedes were somewhat competitive towards the end of last year, so that's not out of the question. But for Colapinto to win a race when he's a reserve driver currently, I know obviously there's all the talk about him replacing Jack Doohan after 5 races. That is one of the boldest comments I think I got, that a reserve driver is going to not only get a seat but win in an Alpine. They also added on the end, if not Colapinto, then Yuki Tsunoda will win for VCARB, which again I think is quite unlikely, but I'm here for it. If it happens, go Yuki, go Colapinto, go Antonelli, go Lawson. TikTok user #1 says Williams will finish in the top 4 of the Constructors' Championship. Like I said earlier, I think the top 4 teams are pretty solidified with Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren, Mercedes. I definitely think that Williams could get P5. I think they've got one of the stronger pairings amongst the midfield. I think most of the other teams in the midfield have got rookie drivers or a young driver pairing, so I think Carlos and Alex are a pretty good pair. The only one that could be better would be Aston Martin, but that's just because Fernando Alonso is so highly rated that he brings up the average. So I would say maybe not a P4 for Williams, but maybe a P5? Who knows? Catalina Pons on TikTok. Piastri will be the #1 driver at McLaren. Jack Doohan will be dropped by Alpine and replaced by Colapinto. And third, Lance Stroll will leave after this season. Please do not get my hopes up about Lance Stroll leaving. But the first one, Oscar being #1 at McLaren, he did look really strong on a few races next year, but it's his qualifying that he's going to really need to sort out. Again, the qualifying last year was something like 21-3 to Lando. But then Oscar did look stronger in some of the races, so if he can sort his qualifying out, I definitely could see that happening. Doohan being replaced by Colapinto, I think that's very, very likely. I think the 5-race contract is what everyone seems to be throwing about, so I definitely could see that happening. Stroll being gone after this year, I've seen quite a few people say this. I just don't see why he would leave. Apparently Adrian Newey is really unhappy that he's there, because obviously Adrian wants a really good team and Lance Stroll doesn't really belong in a really strong team. But then his dad literally owns the team, so why would he? I just don't understand Lance's motivation ever. Every time you see him speak, he sounds so bored out of his mind. He seemingly has no interest in Formula One. So I hope he does leave, but I feel like he's going to be there for like 35 years. A few YouTube comments. No rookie crash at Australia. I feel like this is almost quite unlikely just because we have so many rookies on the field. If there's only 1 or 2 rookies, I'd be quite in favour of this. But with having 6 rookies on the field, I feel like we're almost guaranteed that one of them's gonna have some sort of collision. And if we're counting something like a front wing being clipped, or maybe a small crash in qualifying or in one of the practice sessions maybe. But if there were no crashes for the rookies, I think that would be great for them. Rookies have been quite crash happy in recent years in Formula One though, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw at least one of the rookies binning it. Last of all, we've got someone that came in with 7 different bold predictions, so we're going to quick fire them one by one. First, again, Lance Stroll will retire from Formula One and be replaced by Yuki Tsunoda. I really hope that happens. I think Tsunoda going to Aston Martin would be a great move, especially with Honda going there. I think that is quite likely to happen, as long as we can finally see the end of Lance Stroll. Number 2, Verstappen will win his 5th title despite not having the best car. I definitely think that this could happen. Obviously, you can never really count Max Verstappen out. Amongst the top teams, Max arguably has the easiest teammate just because he's so new. So you would assume that Liam isn't going to take as many points off of Max as maybe Oscar's going to take off of Lando or Lewis is going to take off of Charles. McLaren will defend their Constructors' title because Hamilton won't score enough points at Ferrari. I feel like Lewis at Ferrari next year is going to be either the greatest thing of all time, or it's going to be so mediocre that we're all going to forget that he's even driving the car. I certainly hope it's not the latter. I really hope that Lewis does succeed at Ferrari. I would be really sad if Charles outscored Lewis Hamilton by so much that they lose the Constructors' Championship because of it. Kimi Antonelli will manage 1 pole position and win a race. Again, I would love to see this. As long as the Mercedes is competitive enough, I definitely think this is achievable, particularly considering there's now 24 races a year. He's got many, many attempts to try and do this. And I do think that Kimi has got something special about him. I think his year may be a bit inconsistent, but there definitely seems to be the raw pace there. Definitely for the pole position, for the race win. Again, he has definitely got the speed, and I would love him to win a race, particularly if it was at Monza. Having an Italian driver win at Monza would be absolute scenes. Number 5, the race-winning drivers in order from most to least will be Verstappen wins the most, Leclerc, Norris, Piastri, Hamilton, Russell, Antonelli, and Gasly. I'm not too sure how Gasly squeezed his way in there, but if we did have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different race winners next year, I'm all here for that. That would be wicked. Number 6, Colapinto will replace Doohan after 5 races. Already covered that. 7, both titles will go down to the season finale. Yes, please. And 8, Sainz will destroy Albon. I've already covered Sainz destroying Albon. As sad as that does make me feel because I love Alex Albon, yeah, I think that's going to happen too. So there you have it. That's my bold predictions and your bold predictions ahead of the 2025 Formula 1 season. If you're new here, please consider dropping a like, a comment, or subscribing to the channel. There is going to be a huge amount of content coming out soon. I'll be going to the AusGP in a few weeks' time, and I'm going to be starting to make race reviews once the season gets started, so there's going to be no shortage of Formula 1 content on the channel. So make sure you're following along so you don't miss any uploads. And if you've got any bold predictions for 2025, drop them down below. I make sure to reply to every single comment that I get. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.